Welcome back to In Pursuit 360. Today, we're going to be talking about interview questions and maybe some scenario answers for those law enforcement interview questions. Stand by. All right, here we go. Welcome back to In Pursuit 360. Today, we're going to be talking about law enforcement interviews and some possible questions that you might get, and maybe some ways to think about how you answer those questions. So first things first, let's talk about your attire. First of all, if you're invited into a law enforcement interview, you're better off, wear a suit. Definitely very professional clothing. Gentlemen, suit and tie. Make sure that you have good dress shoes on. Don't wear a suit with tennis shoes. You can go to Walmart, Target, Gabe's, any one of these stores and pick up some cheap interview shoes if you need to. So make sure you're dressed for the part. Ladies, same thing. A pantsuit would be nice. A long dress, like professional attire, would work. Definitely dress to impress. Make sure that you are prepared. Practice your answers. Stand in front of a mirror. Get a friend to ask you some of these questions, or maybe come up with some question ideas of your own, and have a couple of your friends sit in the room and ask you the questions, as long as they can take it seriously. This is not game time. So if you have some good friends that are willing to sit there and ask you these questions and give you some honest feedback in how you're answering them, then try that. So you want to try to avoid like what I just did and use the it will happen, because you're going to be thinking about these questions, especially if you've not heard one of these before. And every now and then that nervous pause, which is what it's called, a nervous pause, when you go or when you're trying to think of what to say next. If you'll notice in my videos, I don't have a script. I don't have a board sitting off here on the side that are just up above that's got all my stuff written out on it, even in bullet points. All this is really off the cuff. So when I pause or look off to the side or look down, and actually I do have a few notes where I wrote some questions out, so they're sitting down here, not in the video, but off camera right down here, so that I can remember some of the key questions I wanted to make sure to bring up to you so that you have time to think about it. Also remember that an interview is a chance to sell yourself. Be confident. You do have something to offer. You just need to learn how to articulate it. So in law enforcement, they're not going to be asking you what are the elements of a burglary. They're not going to ask you what is reckless driving in a 55 mile an hour zone. They don't expect you to know the laws. They don't expect you to know law enforcement. What they want to know is, can you articulate your answers? Are you able to kind of think off the top of your head? And how do you handle the pressure and stress of the interview? And are you able to speak and sell yourself? Do you have that positive, not arrogant, but positive attitude that it's going to end up taking to be a successful law enforcement officer? So, with all that being said, keep all that in mind, and we'll go into more detail on some of those later. Let's get into some of the questions. And one of the biggest ones right up front is, well, why don't you tell us about yourself? Okay. My name is Greg, and be prepared. You know your history. There's no need to pause here. And they don't want to know, well, I was born in 19 whatever or 20 whatever now, as time keeps going by. Tell us about yourself means tell us your history that makes you a good candidate as a law enforcement officer. So I'll always bring up, or I used to bring up, I'm not doing it anymore, but for promotions I bring it up. So I bring up things like my personality and my understanding of people and my communication skills came from my mother. She understood the importance of communication and the importance of being able to tell how people wanted to be treated. And I'll usually throw in something like, I learned later in a leadership class that the golden rule is a lie. And this is what she taught me, that do unto others as you would have done unto you doesn't really work, because not everybody is me. I will say something like, really the rule should be do unto others as they would have done unto them. So I know that I need to figure out who I'm talking to and then how I need to deal with that individual so that they're receptive to what I'm saying. So that's a skill that she taught me a long time ago. And then my grandfather was probably my greatest male mentor, and he taught me about taking care of people. He was a bomber pilot in World War II. He also ran a security police command in Korea, and he was also an Iowa State trooper. And through his stories, he taught me the importance of taking care of people and how to respect them. And no matter what they may say, that I need to take the time to kind of figure out where they're coming from and how I can win them over, because that's what he did. And he always took care of his people, and he always took time to talk to everybody. And then I'll get into a work, okay, so that's how I would start off answering that question. And then I would go into some work history. And before I ever became a law enforcement officer, I did customer service in retail, where I learned that, the key to dealing with people is, again, that golden rule's a lie, right? You need to figure out what each individual is like. And then also I learned another valuable lesson from my mother is, anybody that tells you that they enjoy working with people, they've never really worked with people. They may enjoy the challenge of working with people, which is what I enjoy. I enjoy the challenge of working with people and trying to see what I can do to help them out. And I had a lot of practice of this in retail as I became the customer service manager for two major toy companies, Lionel Kitty City, anybody that may have heard of them, and I know you all have heard of Toys R Us. And I worked the front end customer service manager for both of those retailers before I was 21 years old. So I bring that experience in. So I bring in the work experience of doing that and dealing with people. Now, I've not touched on anything law enforcement here. This beginning of tell us about yourself is how well I deal with people. Because in law enforcement, what are you doing? You're dealing with people, right? So that's how I answer that question. You can figure out a way to change this up or adjust it to whatever your experience is. Trust me, you have experiences that you can draw on to answer this question. Tell us about yourself. Okay? So that's one. One of my, we'll get into my all-time favorites here in a minute. So another one is, what do you know about this agency? The Pentagon was famous for this. One of their first couple of questions is, what do you know about the Pentagon Police? And their thinking is that if you want to go work for them, you will have taken the time to look them up on the internet and done a little bit of research. I mean, if you're going to go work somewhere, don't you want to know where you want to go work? So even if it's like the sheriff's office, and I'll be honest with you, they didn't ask me this question when I interviewed for the sheriff's office. And if they would have, I'd have completely bombed it because I had no clue. The sheriff's office, you're going for a sheriff's officer, if you're going for a police department, get on the internet. What is their mission statement? What are their core beliefs? Anymore, every single law enforcement agency in the country has got a mission statement and they've got their core beliefs listed. You need to know them when you're going in because you need to be able to tell them, I understand that the core beliefs of this agency are the same things that I believe in: professionalism, integrity, fairness, and compassion, which just so happen to be the 4 core beliefs of Stafford County Sheriff's Office. I even did a video on those, and they're a good way to live your life. Do the research. Pentagon Police wanted to know. In 2001, 9/11, the Pentagon was attacked by terrorists. Because of this attack, in response, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency was formed, which also formed the Pentagon Police, which is where they got their start, was after 9/11. The Pentagon Force Protection Agency was an all-encompassing agency to provide security force protection for the entire Pentagon reservation and all of the DoD facilities within the DMV, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. This is all on the internet. You can look this up. So do your research. Whatever agency it is that you're going for, whatever department you're going for, do some research on the agency. Who's the current chief of police? Who's the deputy chief? Who's the sheriff? Who's the deputy sheriff? Or the major, usually, is the rank that they're given. Or the under sheriff is another word that they use for the number two in command. So do some research on your agency or your department that you're going for so that you can answer these questions. What do you know about our department? So here's my favorite, and I'm definitely being sarcastic. What is your greatest strength and what is your greatest weakness? Really? I hate those questions, but I swear to you, they are in almost every major interview you're going to go to. So the strength question, come up with what you've got to come up with, but make sure it's something good. Mine, and it's true, which is why I have no problem talking about it, mine is my ability to communicate. And I always throw in something like communication, I would say, is my greatest strength. I've been through a lot of leadership schools and things like that, and I understand the importance of communication, that it's a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street. So it's not just me listening. It's me being able to hear what the person is saying, process what they're saying, and then being able to respond intelligently. Or in short, I listen to understand. I don't listen to respond. And the importance of that is if you listen to respond, you only hear just enough up until you know what your answer is going to be, and you don't hear anything that comes after that. And that's not communicating. That's not completely understanding what the individual is trying to get across to you. And I feel that in law enforcement, it's absolutely critical to understand the true meaning of communication and be able to communicate, because if you're not listening to understand and you're out on a call, you're going to miss something. And if you make a decision based off of not all the information, that can definitely cause trouble further down the line. That's a sample for strength. Weakness, make sure that it's something that you're showing that you have under control. It's kind of a trick question. So my original answer to this question, they say, is probably the worst answer you can possibly give. So I used to say my strength was my work ethic. I'm a firm believer in work. I work hard and I do all this. My greatest weakness, my work ethic. I have a problem, I work so much, I'm so dedicated that, sometimes I forget to make time for my family and whatever. Don't do that. Bad answer. Something more like pick an actual thing that you're weak in. Mine is procrastination. So my answer would go something like, well, I know that one of my weaknesses is I tend to be a procrastinator. So to overcome that, I make sure that I keep a list of my objectives for the day and I prioritize them out and what I need to get done. And then I do my daily objectives, my weekly and my monthly, and I have it all right there in writing. And then that way, as I get them done, I mark them off and it keeps me on track, and that keeps me from procrastinating and putting off my tasks, right? So that's having a weakness that you've really overcome, but it's still a weakness. See what I'm saying? So, although it's sarcastically my favorite question, it is one that I have learned thanks to a great instructor, believe it or not, one time, Larry Mosier, former major out of Fairfax County, who now runs Mosier Training Solutions. He taught me the idea of selling yourself and taking that weakness and not letting it just lay there. You have to tell them what the weakness is and how you fixed it. So it's still there and it's a work in progress, but you've overcome it. Make sense? Okay. One of the favorite questions in law enforcement usually has something to do with integrity. As an example, the Pentagon question was, what if you and your partner go off to a little convenience store or whatever, or a little store inside the Pentagon, or we used to have like a little gas station right outside before they tore it down. But you go in there and your fellow officer goes to the back and gets a bottle of soda or a bottle of water out of the case and just walks out the door. What do you do? Do you go confront him? Do you double check with the clerk and pay for it for him? And then they'll add something like, and the clerk tells you, oh yeah, he comes in and takes a bottle all the time, but he never pays for it. Like they have a problem with it. So, and then you go, okay, let's say you confront him. Oh yeah, no, it's no big deal. They let me take drinks all the time. What do? What's your integrity? Your answer should be something like, well, first I'm going to talk to him and tell him it's wrong, and he needs to go back in and pay for it. And if he gives you that whole story about, oh, it's okay, they let me do it all the time, are you sure? Because they didn't seem to be okay with that. No, it's fine. Now what do? Your answer had better be you're going to go notify a supervisor. That thin blue line thing, that thin blue line is yeah, we're a family, we're a group, but don't disgrace the blue line. Don't tarnish the badge. Don't steal. Don't beat somebody, right? Don't use excessive force. Don't cross that thin blue line. Don't tarnish the badge. So your answer had better be you're going to report him to a supervisor. It sounds crappy, and here's the funny thing. When you're out on the street, if you catch somebody doing something like that, you had damn well better report him to a supervisor. Because if you don't, now you're an accomplice. Now you're going to get fired right along with him. Anyway, all right, so that's one. Another one's going to be a decision-making scenario. So the sheriff's office question was, you're off duty, you're armed, you're at a high school basketball game, you're watching your kid or you're watching a friend's kid play basketball. You go out to the concession stand to get a drink. There are about 10 other people in line, and you notice that the person up front appears to have a handgun, and they're sticking up the concession stand at the basketball game inside the high school. And you see them hand them a bunch of money, and they go and they take off and they run out the door. What do? And you're armed with your badge. What do? So, my answer, and I had no law enforcement experience at the time at all. This was strictly just off the top of my head. My answer was, well, I would follow at a safe distance, and if there was an opportunity where I might be able to say something, then I might, but depending on how many people were around, I would get the license plate number of the vehicle that he got into, or I would try to get a good description, and then go back inside and call 911, and then just be a really good witness. The idea being, if you think about the motto of law enforcement, to protect and serve, right? So to protect is first. So if you're in a scenario like that with a lot of people around, if you draw your weapon and try to challenge them right there with all those people, are you protecting? The answer is no. You get outside the doors. I mean, could there be other people around their cars? You don't know who's in those cars, and you go challenge them outside. Are you protecting? No. So they want to know where your mindset is. Are you ready to protect and serve? Do you think things all the way through, or are you just going to like bull rush the problem and end up creating a bigger one? So you need to think along those lines. A Pentagon scenario question is, you're in the 9/11 memorial. So again, if you had done your research, you would have realized that the 9/11 memorial is outside. It is on the far side of the building down by quarter 5, and you would know that how it's laid out. So the scenario is you're in the 9/11 memorial doing a foot patrol, and you hear 2 shots ring out, and then a bunch of people screaming and starting to run away from a certain area, where you look and you see an individual with a gun. What do? So if you have no law enforcement experience whatsoever, the very first thing that you should probably think of is, maybe I should take cover. You don't want to get shot, do you? So maybe you want to take cover. The next thing that they really want to know is, okay, so you can draw your weapon if you want, but what they really want to know is, are you going to get on your radio and communicate and let dispatch know what you have? So, and then they want to hear something. That's the big thing. They want to know if you're going to communicate, if you're going to take cover. So, or are you just going to draw your weapon and shoot the subject? Do you know for sure what happened? Right? So you can't just immediately react. You have to be able to evaluate. So take cover, get on the radio. You're going to get backup started your way. Let them know you've had 2 shots fired. You've got people running out of the 9/11 memorial. You've got 1 subject with a gun. And then you're going to react off of what happens next. So if you've got your weapon drawn, you've made your notification to dispatch, you're going to challenge him? Drop the weapon. And then hopefully he complies. And then if he complies, then you can move in slowly or wait for backup and go from there. So remember, if you take these scenario questions and you apply to protect and serve and put that in there and not just be the bull in the china shop, I'm going to draw my weapon out and I'm going to shoot him. Well, little do you know is that person may have just had their gun with them, which is a violation, by the way, on a federal reservation, and somebody attacked him, and so it was all self-defense, and now he's just standing there with his gun over a body, over somebody that just attacked him, and now you're going to shoot the guy that just defended himself. So you can't assume anything. So you're always protecting and serving, right? So when you get these scenario questions, think about the smart play. Think about the I'm going to take cover, I'll draw my weapon, I'm going to look around and see if there's anybody in immediate danger and try to direct them away from the scene as soon as I possibly can. I'm going to challenge the subject. I'm going to order him to drop the weapon, put the weapon on the ground. And then if he doesn't comply, as long as he's standing there not threatening anybody and not aiming the gun at me or anybody else, then I'm going to stand there and wait for backup. What's wrong with that answer? Absolutely nothing. Nothing says you have to shoot that guy. You will not find a single instructor that is going to tell you in any scenario that's the time to shoot. Okay? So in the interview, it's about protecting and serving. So can you use your head, or are you just bloodthirsty and you want to shoot somebody? That's not always the answer. So don't go to that. It's always protecting and serving. You're protecting yourself, you're protecting the public, and believe it or not, you have to protect the bad guy. As soon as they give up, it's done. There's nothing else with it. You don't get to beat them, you don't get to shoot them, you don't get to tase them, you don't get to spray them. Once they give up, it's over. We are not judge, jury, and executioner. We are simply the enforcers who bring the bad guys into the justice system, and the system will deal with it. Maybe not, we may not always agree with it, but that's how it works, okay? So anyway, that's a whole nother video. And then the famous question, why do you want to be a police officer? Well, why do you? Mine always answered it with the basic idea of, this may sound kind of cliche, but I want to help my community. I want to serve the community. And my answer always was, if I can make the difference in one person's life, just one, in my entire career, just one, then I will have made a difference. And I'm talking about a true difference that alters the direction that this person is going in to be a better human being, then I will have done my job. Because then they will be better for the community. They will be better for other people. If I can do that for just one person in my career, then that's why I want to be a law enforcement officer, because I want to see if I can reach just that one person. If I can reach more, that's great. But if I could just reach one and make a difference in their life, that's what I'm here for. That's why I wanted to be a police officer. Your answer is what your answer is, but you need to think about it, because they're going to ask you, what is your reason for wanting to be a police officer? Be honest. If you just want to go out there and run and gun and you think it'd be fun to chase bad guys, just word it better than that. I realize that there is an uptick in crime in the community, and I hate to see my neighbors suffer. And I think that I would be a valuable part of that team, being out there on the street trying to reduce the crime rate. I really want to try to do something to make a difference. Here we go with a difference in my community, to help out my fellow neighbors and the business owners in the community. I think I can make a difference in the crime rate. I want to be out there and try to do that. I want to be able to protect and serve, right? Funny how it all comes back. So even if you just want to go run and gun, there's a way to word that, and you probably find out that it's true. Any good law enforcement officer, their main purpose is to protect and serve. The running and gunning, the people that get into it just for that, just because they want to drive fast or just because they want to catch bad guys, they tend not to last very long. They hit that 5 to 7 year burnout and they tend to be done. They don't go very far because they don't really have that heart, that idea of community service, and understanding what it's really all about. I mean, running and gunning is such a small part of it. Anyway, so that's your basic interview, some of your interview questions to consider. And I can expand on all of these and go into a big old rant, but this video is already way longer than anything I've ever made before, and I'm sure you're tired of sitting here looking and listening at me. So subscribe to the channel, mash that like button down there, little thumbs up thing, blue somewhere down in here. Anyway, so smash the like button, leave me some comments, let me know what you think about my content, let me know if you have any other questions. Are there any other interview questions that you can come up with that you would like me to help you figure out maybe a better way to answer it? So, as always, I'm here for you. Thanks for watching In Pursuit 360, and be safe out there.